Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. Today we are going to start with our reading lesson, which is Victoria, Queen of the United Kingdom. Now, before we start, we have to recognize, or we have to know, the genre of this story, which is biography. What does biography mean? Biography means an account of someone's life written by someone else, which means that this, let's say, biography is not written by the Queen herself, but written by someone else. Let's start reading. Victoria's early life. First of all, we will get to know the life of the Queen Victoria. Princess Alexandria Victoria was born into the British royal family on 24th May 1819. Her mother was extremely protective and the princess grew up under strict rules. So her full name is Princess Alexandria Victoria. So as British people or English people have first, middle and last name, okay? So she brought up with her mother under strict rules. She was never allowed to be alone. Her mother, her tutor, or her governess was always with her. She shared a bedroom with her mother. So, can you notice the strict rules that she lived under, let's say, such as she is not allowed to be alone, okay? She was with her mother, tutor, or governess. Okay, she shared a bedroom with her mother. Her only friends were her dolls and her little dog, so she doesn't have any friends. Okay, Dash is the name of her dog. When she was older, she described her childhood as rather sad and lonely. So the Queen, when she got older, she talked about her childhood and described it as sad and lonely. Why is that? Because she was raised up under strict rules, okay? And she was not allowed to be alone or to have any friends. At the age of 17, she was introduced to a handsome young German, Prince Albert. She liked him at once, but she was not yet ready to marry. So she was introduced to a young German prince who later is going to be her husband. A new queen. Now, the princess was 18 on the 24th of May, 1837. Less than a month later, her uncle, the king, died and she became queen on the 20th of June. 1837, her first two requests were to have an hour by herself and to have her bed removed from her mother's room. So the first decision that she made when she became a queen is to remove her bed from her mother's bedroom. She did not want to be called Queen Alexandria. Instead, she asked for her second name, which is Victoria, to be used. Victoria was crowned. Marriage now. Let's talk about her marriage. Victoria was crowned on 28th of June 1837 and she made Buckingham Palace her home. Okay, so this is the palace where Queen Elizabeth II is living now. Because she was not married, her mother also lived in the palace, but Victoria often refused to see her. She met Prince Albert several times over the next 2 years. Finally, she asked him to marry her, and their wedding took place on the 10th of February 1840. Victoria adored her new husband from the start. and she relied on him for advice and support in her role as a queen. So let's say she used to count on her husband for advice and help. She had to meet the prime minister and listen to his ideas for government and make decisions about matters of state. So she cannot make decisions from her own without listening to the prime minister and to get approval. Okay? So, let's read about her family life. Their first child was born in November 1840, and over the next 17 years they had 8 more children. Family life became important to Victoria with Prince Albert's guidance. She became better daughter to her mother. So let's say she and her mother, at the end they get along before her mother died. When her mother died in March 1861, Victoria was at her beside. In December of the same year, Prince Albert died after a short illness, and Victoria was devastated. She wore black for the rest of her life. She continued her government duties, but she did not live in London. She stayed in her castle in the south of England in Scotland. Because of this, she was not so popular as before. She was advised to be seen in public more often, and gradually she appeared at more public events. The British Empire. During the Victoria's reign, the British Empire expanded. Much of India came under British rule, and from 1st of May 1876, Victoria was also named Empress of India. So they occupied India, but they didn't call it as an occupation. They have seen it as an expansion. So the expansion of the British Empire helped other countries and protected people from cruel rulers. Other countries did not have the same point of view, and saw Britain as a threat. Britain was often at war for the empire, which was more powerful than it had ever been before. The Victorian period, or we can call it the Industrial Revolution. Victoria's reign was known as the Victorian period. Family life was important to everyone. Bad behavior was not allowed, and children had to be obedient. It was a time of industrial progress, as we said, the Industrial Revolution. Factories, railways, and bridges were built. Cities expanded greatly for those who had good jobs and comfortable homes. Life was pleasant, but for the poor people who lived in the worst houses, life was hard. Work in the factories was exhausting and often dangerous. Many people spoke out against the harsh conditions, and the well-known writer Charles Dickens wrote about them in his very famous novel, which is A Great Expectation. So he described the miserable life or the suffering of labor. Final years, Victoria's reign of 63 years, 7 months and 2 days, was longer than she reigned of any king or queen. Before her, she had become immensely popular. Her children had married into European families, and she had more than 30 grandchildren. She was known as the grandmother of Europe. When she became ill and died on this 22nd of January 1901, aged 81, the whole population was deeply saddened. She was buried next to her husband, Prince Albert. So this was our reading lesson for today. Hope you enjoyed it.